Welcome to Cyprus Founders Podcast. Today I'm joined with Alex Douedari. Myself and Alex just had a coffee and we talked about a lot of different things, his fitness journey, his financial journey, also going from losing everything to getting it back and more. So Alex, really excited to jump in today.
Yeah, excited to be here. Indeed,
Awesome.
we already had a podcast basically before we started. So it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, I think one thing that did come up is like how you do one thing is how you do everything. I think a good place to start is to talk about your fitness journey. Maybe share that with people, what happened, where you were maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure. So essentially all my life, actually. So I don't remember not being overweight, even as a child. And things got worse and worse as I got older. Like from teenage ages, I was like basically obese, you could say that easily, and continued to be that, and more and more and more, even well into my early 40s, if you want, you know. So, and about 3 years ago, I decided, actually the biggest change that sparked all of this is that I was just tired of my nonsense. I was draining my energy. I was going out too much. I was just like trying to compensate, I think, you know. And what I did is I replaced, because I'm a passionate guy. Like if I do something, I usually go really deep. I go, I don't stay surface. And you could extrapolate that to eating as well for a big part of my life if you want. And I stopped drinking alcohol completely. I stopped going out, and of course, naturally, things change. Like your friendship circle changed, your activities changed, your habits changed, and I replaced it with healthy habits like good diet, going to the gym. I started with once per week. Today I go 6 times per week, and sometimes I add 2 EMS sessions on top. So, and I think that it's never too late to really find or get closer to the potential that's actually inside of you. And too many people give up on themselves or on their, what's possible for them in their own conception. And if you would see me actually 3 years ago, I could, if you want, I can show you. Like I don't think you'd believe it.
And then whilst you're just pulling that up, like you were saying, like sick and tired of kind of your excuses. Was there a trigger? Any specific moment you're like, okay, I need to do something now?
Well, in a way, it was just the average weekly waking up after a party night and say like, oh, I feel like shit. So I can say that there was like one particular trigger in the sense of that one situation had changed everything. It was more an accumulation of many unserving, let's just say, situations that led me to finally decide that I didn't want to go down that road any longer. Because realistically spoken, if I had gone down that road more, there's only, look, this is me in 2016, for example.
Holy shit, man. Can you see that on the camera? That is insane. So maybe share with people that, man, that is fucking wild, bro. Like amazing, like insane transformation. Tell people how much weight you've actually lost now.
Like from peak to bottom, around 70 kilos. But also at the same time adding a good amount of muscle too. So it's not just losing weight, but also changing body composition. And again, I did that. I started at the age of 41 or something. Now I'm 44. And so it literally only it's amazing how in 3 years you can turn around a whole life of abuse. If you think about it, that's percentage-wise, I don't know, what is it, like 8% of my whole life that I just had to invest here and to have a life quality that I never thought was actually available to me ever. Yeah. And that's, we talked about it earlier, you and I, is that even though I was financially successful, that bad quality in terms of overeating or being, like in some shape or form not happy with yourself, because in a way eating is always still some sort of a coping mechanism, I would say. It did have impact on other areas of my life. So even financially, I would have like more inconsistency that I have today. For example, I would have more bigger swings. My mood was all over the place. I still have challenges when it comes to, let's just say, I mean, probably in the big scheme of things or in the comparison with the average, I'm pretty well in control of myself and my actions, my moods and everything. But nonetheless, it's a daily effort. It's not automated. And I feel like laziness or complacency is poison for everyone. So, in fact, I mean, you've heard this before, right? Losing or doing nothing is you have a hard life, you know, and or putting in effort is hard, is difficult. So pick your heart, you know. And at the end of the day, I have to say, like, challenging yourself to do difficult things, literally on a daily basis, makes you very happy.
It's the quote, like, hard choices, easy life. Easy choices, hard life.
Pretty much. There's no easy. Easy is a misconception. If you follow easy choices, you have a hard life. This is much worse than follow hard choices and have an easy life. So, also, I think in general, and that ties a bit into what we talked about earlier, that in a way we are like trying to find our spiritual home in this existence, is that we are creators by design. So if all we do is consume, we're fucking miserable.
Yeah, it's a interesting one because, like, the thing that I guess that's actually one thing I want to go into now is, like, before you get maybe stressed, then the pattern and response is I eat to alleviate that stress. Long term, I'm probably not happy, but I kind of fill that void in the moment. What do you do now when you get that kind of emotional response, whereas before food was the thing that used to go in there?
Well, first of all, I think coping or any short-term gratification action is based on, I feel bad, I need to do something about this right now. I need an immediate remedy, an immediate alleviation, something like that, which is weakness at the end of the day. And you train yourself, your nervous system, your everything on being in an endless doom loop, more or less. So what I do today is I remind myself of the realities of my life, which is like, okay, if something didn't work out the way it did right now, it's like, take a pause. See it as a gift of a reflection moment that you can now double check. Where's the lesson? What did I do wrong? Did I do anything wrong? Should I be more patient? What can I do better? Like, it's like today, moments of difficulty are invitations for reflections, and in a non-needy way. Because if you act out of reactivity, and that we can tie into that also then when we go into like trading or things like that. Reactivity, typically, all your decisions made in reactivity coming from lack mirror that result at the end. So you will continue.
Can you give an example?
Like, look, if you eat something because you want to feel good about yourself, you're going to feel worse about yourself because you're going to even become in worse shape.
Like the shame loop afterwards.
Not just shame. Shame would be a psychological aspect, but also physically, you add weight. It's also it's just like on multiple dimensions, it's a bad choice. And so if something bad happens to you, if you don't see it as something bad anymore, but you really reframe it, again, what we said earlier, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you reframe it as an invitation, as a moment of opportunity, and of course, that takes training. That takes unlearning of a lot of things, shedding a lot of belief systems, and takes also a lot of understanding about yourself. The journey of self-discovery and self-development is very crucial in that aspect. This is what self-awareness at the end of the day is, what consciousness is. I think that's what's really about. Otherwise, we're just meat robots, right? Like in a way, like so how expand like how big is the algorithm that runs on you actually in the first place, you know?
When you look at the photo of yourself, like, because it's a huge difference. What advice would you give to Alex from like 2016? Like, if you could go back there then. And I guess I'm saying that because, like, for someone listening, if they're like in a like they have a lot of weight to lose, like what would be the first steps you'd recommend for them?
The number one thing I would say is that, and I think this is also what got me into that situation in the first place, is like, first of all, stop trying to find your self-worth in other people's opinions or idea about you. Because naturally, especially if you get to that level of obesity, or maybe you're poor, or maybe whatever, like if you're just like on a blacklist, you will be faced with opinions that are bad about you, negative. And that will also, again, like reinforce that loop that you value yourself like that. And you will just say like, oh, fuck it, I don't care about like getting my shit into order because anybody doesn't like me, or it doesn't lead anywhere or anything. So the number one thing is that you need to find connection with something that establishes your value to yourself. Mm-hmm. For me, it was finding spirit, God, whatever you want to call it, without being religious. I don't mean religion in a sense. I mean like literally being connected to that force that brings luck your way, that grows your fingernails, that keeps this world running, if you want, if you believe in that. Like, again, for you, it could be something else. For you, it could be like, hey, if I make $100,000 a month, that's my life force, who am I to judge? I'm not going to do that. But establish something that your value is given to begin with. That's number one. And then you also have to understand is that there's a concept called the bread of shame, which basically means is that if you just get handed things by God, by the universe, by your parents, by whoever, that's why so many people that look rich or rich children or whatever essentially end up being miserable, because they never really had to give the equivalent amount of energy or development to be able to receive that blessing, or to hold it, actually. They receive it, but they cannot hold it. They cannot contain it, basically. So, and that's important to understand, that you cannot get from life what you're not able to hold. So you need to work on your ability to hold, to be a vessel, if you want, of the blessings, the results, the life that you want to have. Mm-hmm. And that means you need to work your ass. Yeah. So
and I guess like a lot of the joy and fulfillment from stuff comes from like the pursuit of things as well.
Absolutely.
Earning it.
Absolutely. So the journey is the way, for sure. Mm-hmm. I know, like, now we're starting to become all like spiritual and philosophical here, but that's the truth. Because if you're only looking at results, well, I can predict what your result's going to be. It's 6 feet under, regardless of who you are, where you are, and what you think you are. That's just going to happen. So, but what you become as you go through that trajectory, that's the actual fulfillment. That's the actual joy. And here, that ties back to the advice I would give to anyone. You can change literally everything. And you can make miracles come your way with the right attitude and the right action taken in much faster time than you actually believe you can. However, if you relapse all the time and you go back into old habits or judgments, or let's just say, I also think like when you judge anyone for anything, whether it's envious or gossiping or any of these things, these energies come back to you. Mm-hmm. So in some shape or form, you will need to face the same challenges that you put out yourself. Basically, you're like an energetic boomerang, So, but if you keep things clean, if you work on yourself to expand your container, your capacity to hold whatever results you want to achieve in life, and you consistently walk that path. We just saw the book here, The Atomic Habits, with like small steps every single day. It's literally impossible that you will not reach that goal. And now people say, but I come from a poor family, my country is this, the president does that. Like, this is where I connect to God. I just like, look, this are earthly matters. I don't care. Like, I will just focus on my process, and my process may lead me to another country, may lead me to, so take leap of faith, but leap of faith coming from fullness, from wholeness, from development, not from reactivity, lack, and fear. That's, yeah.
One of the big patterns I noticed since I've come to Cyprus is there's a lot of entrepreneurs here. And everyone's very like positive. Like when I was back in Ireland, like, you know, I've got a great network, but a lot of people, they're like, nah, it won't work. Or it's kind of like more of a negative, or like it's not even possible. Whereas everyone here is like, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, having that energy is very important.
I would say there is obviously the risk of the other side of the spectrum. Like when you're just like nonsensically happy, you're also not going anywhere. Yeah. No offense.
There's a big thing, I think, in the spiritual field as well.
Or you act it. If you only act it, like this fake it till you make it culture, I don't think that's the solution to it. Nonetheless, to start, to get moving, you have to delude yourself into something first. Because if you believe it's not possible, then you're not going to be able to move anywhere. So it's necessary that you have the belief. But you need to then also, again, and this is with the 1% every day, to solidify that hope, that belief, that, assume it's already happened today. It needs to mirror in your actions, in your self-talk, in your auditing. Like if you say like, oh, look, I've been like meditating all my life, and this manifestation thing, I don't know, like maybe it's not for me. And so again, you create a belief system for yourself that like, oh, you're like this poor little nice guy that just ended up having bad luck by God, not supposed to become rich or fulfilled or a relationship or any of these things, which I firmly disagree with. Like I think the way I see it is that the blessings that this world or this life has to give you, whether it's love, like relationships, whether it's success and money, whether it's health, all these things, they want to be given to you all the time. But again, you need to develop yourself to be receptive to them. And if you're looking for love by scrolling through dating apps all day long and just go from one day to another and then watch YouTube videos that the only thing that it does is reinforce your belief of like how a certain gender is, and like and you find yourself starting to hate women because they all just want your money, they all just want to date, they have all these expectations of you and all this and this and that. Well, look, you mirror that back to yourself. But if you break out of that loop and you become that kind of, you always need to become the person that you want to be first. Yes. When you become that person, it means like, what would this person do in that situation? How would I feel? How would I react to that feeling? How would I also face that feeling? And a lot of it, in my opinion, is rooted in awareness and forgiveness at the end of the day. So once you become aware of a certain pattern, like for example, ask yourself, are there people that would really trigger you if they became more successful than you, or who are more successful than you? Probably they are. Like, why exactly? Like, where's this hate coming from? And how? And because as long as this hate or this jealousy is inside of you, you're literally blocking the ability to receive that kind of blessing in your own life. That's my firm expectation, and also something that I have noticed over the years. So, when you are in that rut, in that dark hole of you went too far into the wrong direction, first thing you need to do is to stop the judgment on society, on yourself, on other people, your parents, your upbringing, your friends, the one that betrayed you, all of these things. So whoever you make responsible for anything, you are giving your power away to them. So it's very important that you clean out your closet, and whatever has been, and whatever will be is what you do today. And that's the belief that I think a lot of people miss out on, knowing that they can make that change. So, and it's funny because we didn't plan to talk about these things on this podcast today, but anyway, it happened to me like more than once in my life. You know, like again, I told you, all my 20s, I tried to follow a career as a musician, failed. And then in my late 20s, I lost all my own life savings trying to get into trading first. Then I lost all my parents' pension money because I asked them to lend me money to try to get my money back, and I lost it all in a day. I was like in debt several hundred grand. I was almost 30 years old. I was overweight. I was lonely. I was like the whole thing. But then what got revealed to me, technically quite late comparing to the generations of today, was I saw Dr. Wayne Dyer. So that was the first time when I realized that your thinking, or the change of your thinking, can really impact a lot your reality. And then I got into the financial industry, and obviously it took me a bunch of years to also see anything work there. Especially, it's another industry where most people fail. And that's also something that you just need to understand. If you look at odds only, you're literally never going to succeed in anything. So you have to believe that you can do it. That's the number one step. That's like basically the positive delusion, if you want, or the faith in, if you connect to that creative force, that you can, why not you? Like, why somebody else? Right?
Because like statistically, you know, in the US, I think it's like 70% of people are overweight now. Most people are in debt. So yeah, if you're just looking at the statistics, you're going to be overweight.
And that's exactly that reinforcing negative loop, right? So people will just continue with their habits, and then it will just make it worse and worse and worse. So, however, if you understand, okay, most of the obesity comes from the processed food diet that you should cut out immediately. There's simple things you can do. If nature didn't make it, I don't eat it. End of story. Something like that, you know. You don't need to be rich to afford a healthy lifestyle, especially not if you just want to get off all these poisons to start with. Debt. There's good debt, there's bad debt. Bad debt is debt that you just spent on consumption for nonsense. Good debt is if you use it for something that leverages appreciating assets for you. But you have to work your way there first, right? I mean, if you just used your debt to buy stuff that you really didn't want or need to impress people that you didn't like, then you deserve to be in the place you are in. Like, I'm sorry to be hard on this truth, but this is another thing. You have to be extremely honest with yourself, and at the same time, completely non-judgmental.
I want to go back because you just kind of glossed over it, and
Sure.
it's a pretty important period for you, I think, is like losing all of your own money, then losing your parents' retirement money. Like, maybe just walk back to like what that was like, essentially, maybe the days after, in particular, like losing your parents' money as well.
So I had like this failed music career, and then the people I was working with, we like split after working together for like 7-8 years, day by day, every day in the studio. And then I found myself to be pretty on my own all of a sudden. And I had like this little bit of money saved, and I was always interested in financial markets. Said like, okay, let's try this. And then someone I knew introduced a trader to me. That trader was supposed to be like, knows exactly what he's doing, which obviously he didn't. So he lost all my money in the first day. Like, I think it was 40 or 50K that I saved over 8 years of work or something, you know. And I tried to call him. He didn't answer. Like 2 or 3 days later, he came back and said like, "Oh, I had an accident with my bike. If you bring me some more money, I can make it back. All good." I asked my parents. They cashed in their retirement money. They gave me that money. I put it in a trading account. And then actually, the guy opened trades as well. And then we made the money back. It was there. But the positions were still open. And then the trader asked me, and this is more or less my butterfly effect moment, I call it. This is the one moment that shaped all my future until today. And then he asked me, should we close those trades and take the profits? I told him, dude, you're the trader. You know what you're doing. You just made 50 grand in a day. What should we do? And he said like, okay, we keep them open. Tomorrow we have twice the money. Next day we wake up, everything's gone, because there was a central bank meeting overnight, and I was like, I didn't even know what I was. I didn't exist in that moment anymore. I was like a shadow of my own. No feelings, like nothing. I remember like just getting in the car, driving through Berlin for like the whole day, numbed to a degree that's really. I don't have words for that. It's funny. It puts me back in that situation now. Like I haven't been there in a long time, and I was quite disappointed by life, by God, by everything. Like, well, what the fuck you doing there, man? Like, isn't it enough? Like, come on. Why more? Even more? Like, why? What did I deserve? Why do I deserve to be punished that bad? So full victim mode. And with some, you know, I don't even know, like how or when or how I got a book of Wayne Dyer in my hands, a book or a website or something like that. And that literally sparked the change of, okay, instead of jumping in front of a train, because literally I was planning my suicide already.
Really?
Yeah. I was thinking like, okay, look, in the morning when you go to work, you just jump in front of that fucking train and it's all gone. Like, it's fine. Like, just forget about it. And so I did the opposite. So like, okay, one last chance. I tried to find like investment companies, investment banks, stuff like that, where I just wanted to just let me be your intern, let me work as an intern, and I really, one did accept me. They were a bank out of Munich, and they opened a branch in Berlin, and I was able to start there essentially. And the good part was that we were so early to an industry that today has been so systemized again that it's impossible to learn the ins and outs of the industry as I learned them back at that time, simply because I needed to be involved in all departments to build the business, basically. And it took me a few years, but also the power of mentoring, because I had like one of the customers there was a successful fund manager, and I was going above and beyond, literally, for this customer in terms of making sure he has everything he needs and more, and to be able to build a relationship to get access to some mentoring of what he was actually doing there. And that's how I got more insight. So the combination of understanding how the business really works, like where does liquidity come from, how do real strategies look like, why do most people actually fail in trading, and then somebody who's actually applying these principles in reality, making money with it, and the ability to ask him about my own attempts to do that. That sort of, in daily application, led me down the way then to build and understand a truth of my own, let's just say. And if you think about it today,
what do you mean by truth of your own?
Of how you can be successful in trading, you know, and because the reality is, it is more simpler than people think. You don't need to have like crazy indicators or all this sophistication of super complicated strategies. It's a lot more about clear, statistically based rules, so that you know, if I follow these rules and you have tested these rules thoroughly enough on proper data and you've avoided all the pitfalls, that you will win more than you will lose. How to deal with losses, how to keep those in a certain limit, how you can leverage off your winners better, and just like understand the combination of all these things. And in a way, it's not different to a diet plan, you know.
I was just going to say, it's like, it's simple but not easy.
Exactly. And this, I think, applies to literally everything. It applies to your health. It applies to your wealth. It applies to your relationships as well. You know, you want friends, be a good friend. You want a good partner, be a good partner. You know, understand that there are people, or most people are just lost in this matrix the same way you are. But there are also ones that you resonate with more and that resonate with you more. But you have to be on that vibe, on that frequency in a way, you know. Otherwise you will never meet, you will never see each other. And also, I've become hopelessly optimistic. If something doesn't happen, even today, if something doesn't happen that I really want it to happen, or it takes a lot more times or a lot more detours, then I'm more relaxed about it. I'm like, okay, so what did I miss? What is God trying to tell me here? What is the what do I need to do about myself to make this available to me? It's not, I don't look for the solution in, I just try to do the same thing all over again, and then one time it will just hit. That's, again, like Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Doesn't work.
How long in the new trading role did it take you to get your parents' money back?
5 years.
Right. What was that like, giving it back?
Obviously, you know what's funny? They're so kind-hearted, my parents, honestly. That's for example, through all these storms,
You don't have to share this, but share this about your father's journey as well. I think
so my dad is an immigrant from Syria. He went to Germany in 1960, and he literally worked his way up from zero. He worked as a dishwasher, as a grave digger, like the real real zero to hero story. And he became a dentist eventually. And so we had a good life, let's just say. We weren't like excessively rich or anything like that. He really he's worked his ass off all his life. And you know, like when you're a doctor or a dentist, it means it's not like running a company where you have all these other things happen for you, you know, like people work for you, whatever. As a doctor, it's like literally your hands, your work is what makes you your money in a way. So it had two sides to it. One side was like he taught me a lot about work ethic, but he also, the part that he didn't see that I now learned is like you cannot scale something like that, right? Because you're limited to this one person's output. It's not. But to bring it back to that story, so about my parents were always very kind-hearted. My dad was very strict with me all his life. Maybe that was one of the reasons why I coped with eating and stuff like that as well. But again, maybe in some time of my life, I would wanted to point the finger towards that. Today I said like it was part of my development story because it also made me quite tough. Like I'm a tough guy. Like I'll withstand whatever comes thrown my way. I hope I'm not inviting something here now. Yeah, you never know. Probably I am.
Challenge on the horizon.
But so far, thank God, with the grace of God, I've always withstood things that are literally impossible. But my parents are so kind-hearted that even when I had the money to give it back, they didn't want it back.
What did you do?
So I kept growing it for them.
Very good, man.
And of course, at some point, it's not about like handing something over, but it's just like, okay, you want to go on holiday? You're going to come? Let's meet in Dubai. Let's do this. And, you know, just like remove headaches and worries and real world struggles out of your parents' way as much as you can, let's just say.
And then at what point were you like in a position, was it at that point when you had the money?
No,
when you were
of
like,
course
okay,
not.
good, I can look after them now. And like, when did you get there?
It took like another 5, 6, 7 years before I'm like, even today, I would not consider myself excessively rich or anything like that at all, actually. But in the big scope of things, I'm doing good. I'm doing okay. I don't need to worry about anything. Let's just say, you know, I want to go somewhere, I go somewhere. I want to buy something, I buy something. You know, my son asked me for a laptop for, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 euros. I was just like, after 2-3 days of him nagging, I'll just buy the damn thing.
Just one thing, and you don't have to answer this because it's to do with kids if you don't want to, but you were saying earlier in the conversation, like, you know, if you're given something, you know, earning it is very good. Like, so how are you navigating? I have had this conversation with another guy.
It's good that you pick up on that. It's really good that you pick up on that. So I just summarized nagging of my son, which is not really nagging. So I let him jump through a bunch of hoops and prove to me his worthiness, not in terms of like whether he's like worth of good or bad of it, but of his capacity of do something difficult, of show some excellence, of being patient, even when he knows I could just you know, like he needs to show restraint, he needs to show discipline, he needs to maybe do something unexpected, positive. You know what I mean? And not me telling him that. That's so. This is how I'm hoping, at least, to to build character where they start to believe in their own ability. That's, I think, is very important. That it's not just, oh, we're going to act for 2 days and then it's fine. Because, and this is probably also like a bit of a bad habit I got from my dad. If he gets what he wants and he starts acting like a prick again, it's gone immediately. I'll put it in my room.
So it's really like embodying the behavior,
yes,
identity.
And at the end of the day, you could tell your kids whatever you want. If you don't do what you're preaching, it's never going to reach them, ever.
Have you found a change over the last 3-4 years with the weight loss?
Yeah, definitely. Like also like my older son, he joins me to the gym twice a week.
Awesome.
He's now 13 years old, so he's also getting in a more, like, let's just say, critical age of finding himself, understanding more about the world, getting kicked out of that cozy being a child bubble. And I like him to be, someone that takes initiative, someone that uses the tools around him, that understands that we live in a world that you need to understand how AI works, how it works for you, not instead of you, eating habits. He's lost weight this year also quite well. He's working out regularly with me. We're having a lot of bonding time together as well. So yeah, again, I don't want to invite anything negative here, but I'm very, very happy with him. And if you hear that, my son, this is just the beginning, so keep going.
We actually haven't touched on what you do.
Yeah.
So, like, what is your business? Maybe share that for people so they can know what you're saying is legitimate.
So, what I do is basically, like, for many years, I didn't have like an outside business per se, let's just say. I was just like managing my own finances and my own trades, my own investments, and didn't have anything more for the outer world, let's just say. For some time then, I developed an educational program to try to teach people my trading approach. And I did that for some time, but I stopped doing it because in this coaching bubble, let's just call it for lack of a better word, a lot of people you attract through social media, they have wrong expectations. And that's not even their fault. It's just the environment they're in.
You mean returns?
Yeah, people just think you're going to hand them the key to the Lamborghini overnight. So that's sort of the thing. And that's not happening. And so I dialed that down. And then I sat down and said, like, you know what? The problem with, where I see there is a lack is that most of the coaches out there, or anyone who pretends that he has something to teach, they don't have validation or proof for what they do. So I started to build a track record, so a trading track record. So, and it's not, I have multiple strategies, but it's basically, let's call it my flagship strategy, my flagship currency trading strategy. And it's now close to 3 years. It's a public, verified track record on a regulated platform. So it's not some broker of my uncle in the Seychelles or whatever. So it's in the UK, it's regulated. It's public, verified, transparent. You can see every trade, every stat, everything, almost 3 years. And based on that now, I'm actually, I started now to also offer my services as an asset manager to institutional and professional clients. So I would advise them to run my strategy in their own funds, for example.
For actual financial advisors?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So people that have a fund or that have a family office. Family office is basically a fancy word for a company that takes money from rich people, very rich people, and puts it to work. So, but those people, they also need to know, like, okay, how are we going to invest that money? And for that, they need asset managers, wealth managers, and this is what I am. So essentially, I work with family offices, funds, companies like that, take my services in order to for me to generate return for them.
Yep.
I'm thinking to reopen my coaching to some small degree where I focus only on the strategy of the track record. Because, look, trading is like music. You can make anything. Yeah, it's literally, you can make so many things work in a way. But here, I would like to focus. Like, this is the result. It's verified. It's real. This is the exact approach. I can teach it to people.
Explain the returns over the last 3 years as well.
So we are now up 138%. And what it technically means is that the average of the S&P is somewhere around 9% annually. And we have tripled or even quadrupled that return with not much higher volatility, meaning like swings in between. And we're now almost 3 years long. So in the professional financial space, you need 3 years of track record for anyone to even start to want to talk to you. And this is now the milestones I'm working on. Like, you will never get a $100 million client if you haven't had a $10 million client first, or you will never get a $10 million client if you didn't have a $1 million client first, or even put your own million there. So those are milestones I'm working towards right now. So to bring the assets under management, AUM, we call this, to like, we're now close to 10 million in total of assets through customers, but we also have like, let's just call it, things in the pipeline that should actually scale that quite a lot in the next coming years. But again, and this is what I think is the real takeaway here, I'm not pressured by time. I think time is a very illusionary concept to begin with, because if you rush through things, A, you don't get to experience them, and B, you sort of put yourself in a state of stress where you cannot perform. Now, don't mistake impatience with urgency. Urgency means you do not tolerate laziness. You do not tolerate, like, there's this concept called suffocate the system. So you have to do everything you absolutely can do from your power that can be done. And only then the gates of heaven open, as I call it. So you want to invite a miracle, you have to suffocate the system first, yourself, you know. But when you have that, let's just say, confidence in that, the right people will show up in the right time, the right opportunities, but only if I actually engage with it on a day-to-day basis. You know, it could be going to certain expos, and then just some expos, some random conversation with some random person eventually introduces you to a fund that puts 50 million with you, whatever. Like, these things are definitely, they happen all the time. But if you don't go, it's like, this is just a bunch of idiots. What I'm going to do there anyway, waste my time. No, I'm stay home. So that's what I mean by suffocate the system. Like, you have to really work.
That's what I wanted to ask you next, is that kind of plan and trajectory with your business. Like, how do you get clients as an asset manager?
First of all, it's mainly actually recommendations from existing clients, because in the world of finance, if you're not introduced in some shape or form by somebody personally, it's usually not the same quality, let's just say. You know, if you sit at a table with someone that got introduced by somebody personally, then you have their eyes and ears for a few moments, let's just say. Mm-hmm. If you're just trying to cold call or cold email or LinkedIn people, maybe also it could work, but I personally don't think that's the way to go. So what you want to do is you want to be personally present. Like, you want to show yourself. I think also that's a takeaway that actually today I guess everybody really knows. Like, people buy from people. Like, your offer can be the best offer in the world. If you're just not mirroring that, or if you're, then people probably going to buy from somebody who might have not even an equal offer in terms of quality. So this is what we're back to. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Like, how you conduct yourself, how you look, the language you use, the efforts you put into every interaction, the everything basically. And
do you find the weight loss? Like, I have a client, he didn't lose as much weight. He lost like 15 kilos, which was quite a lot for him. But then he started getting, like, he's just said, like, kind of from a networking standpoint, he just felt much more confident, and then business just became easier. Also, like, he started public speaking. Have you found that impact as well with the weight loss?
Well, it's like profits, they compound. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yes, absolutely. if you radiate something different, your looks, your attention to yourself, it will mirror itself in your confidence back, because people will perceive you in a different way, the quality of conversations, the quality of results. And if you hold yourself accountable to high standards in every interaction, you really do what actually you say you will do, you're just like let's just say somebody people like to be with, and at the same time you're no pushover, you're no no sayer or yes sayer. You really have your knowledge dialed down, and all of these things, then naturally these things yield results for sure. Definitely.
I want to switch gears now into, like, for someone like me, this is a very selfish question, we'll say, but like we kind of touched on it a little bit, but like someone in my position, or I want to start, we'll say, building wealth, or at least trying to hold on to or not allow my money to depreciate. What would be the places I should be looking into? Where should I be after I've got savings? What should I be doing with my money?
So I believe in simplicity, because I think a lot of times when something is too complicated, it's also a way of veiling something, like of trying to hide something, conceal something. And that's why a lot of products out there, especially in the financial world, they have this pretentious complexity and sophistication to it, just in a way to siphon fees off of you, or even steal your money in a smart way, let's just say. So for me, the simplest thing that anybody should do with their savings is buy Bitcoin. Buy the real asset. What does Bitcoin do? When you start trying to understand what it is in the first place, it will open your universe to so many things that not just impact, they dictate your life without you even knowing. So if you think about it, money is an integral part of every single decision you make in your life. Every single one. Every single one. Where you live, what you eat, who you meet, everything. Money is everywhere. It dictates literally who you are. But have you ever asked yourself, what is money? Why is money the way it is? How can I, does it have to be like that? What's the alternative? Is there an alternative? You know what I mean? So money is that big spell on society and humanity that a lot of people have not understood yet at all. And it dictates literally their lives and their life choices. Once you start to concern yourself with Bitcoin and you try to understand, like, what is actually a scarce asset? What is limited supply? What is decentralization? What is a blockchain that cannot be falsified? Like all of these, I'm not going to go too deep into these things, but then suddenly you realize that money is a scam. The system we live in can only exist if it continues to be expanded. And as it expands, the value of one unit gets less and less and less powerful. So essentially, I put in 10 hours of my life force today. And life force is literally the only thing I have. And it's very limited. I only have, let's just say, 10,000 units of life force I could ever spend in my life. So I'm giving 10 of those away, and I'm getting in return a certain amount of dollar units, euro units, whatever it is. But these euro units, even in a year or two from now, will get me a lot less stuff than I could get with it today. So that means if I don't spend it all, if I just want to keep it, if I want to store it like a battery, like a monetary battery, I need to put it somewhere, because if I just hold it, it will lose its value. Why does it lose its value? Because today we have, let's just say, 100 million units in circulation. In 5 years, we have 500 million units in circulation. So 500 million units are seeking the same limited assets that exist, the limited amount of real estate, the limited amount of whatever is real, And that's why real estate has gone up, or stocks have gone up, because literally it's the expansion of the monetary system and that money trying to find places where it can get stored, the value of it, the purchasing power, it's what's called. And Bitcoin is the absolute apex asset, because it's completely finite. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoins. And a bunch of those are already lost in the past. People like lost their access to it. It cannot be restored. You cannot call the Bitcoin hotline and try to get it restored for you. Also, what Bitcoin does, it gives you, like, it opens up a whole, it's a real rabbit hole. It's philosophically, historically, human behavior, your own understanding about money, your relationship with money, and also your responsibility, because Bitcoin is something you can store on your own, self-custody, which means you don't keep your money in the bank. In that sense, Bitcoin is the only thing you can really, really own yourself. If you memorize your access to your Bitcoins on the blockchain in your brain, 12 words, 24 words, nobody can take this from you. People can if they shoot you, they cannot take it from you afterwards. They cannot, because then it will be just inaccessible forever. So, and I believe that on the long scheme of things, that will impact human behavior to a more cooperative spirit, because plundering like that is not possible anymore.
So because the ability to steal is not as available,
exactly.
You think people's behavior will shift?
Exactly, because at the end of the day, it's all game theory. Like, people act on incentives, whether it's presidents or janitors. And if the incentive is understood that with brute force and destroying, I'm not going to get what I actually want, then you will explore other avenues. And that's like maybe very, very macro and long-term thinking now, but I think this will shape society for the better, maybe the next 50, 100 years, something like that. And but to get back to, that's why whatever spare money you have for investing, I would not buy real estate, because you have tenants, you have regulations, you have rules. Like, for example, right now here in Cyprus, you see it like Limassol has become a place where the locals cannot afford to live anymore. And so two things can happen. Either the government will not find some sort of solution and people get more and more angry, and at some point we may even face something like revolutions, people take it to the streets, whatever, burn buildings down. All these things are very possible. Or it's just like, actually, no, I don't even believe that. Like, people will go to the streets at some point if you continue to not give them the ability to have the minimum of life that they actually need to have to exist as a society. So the financialization of real estate is because of the extreme expansion of monetary supply. And that's why I believe real estate is just going to cause you more and more trouble. So the government will probably come up with rules that will make it, will limit the amount of rent you can take, or the amount of real estate you can own, or whatever
do you
regulation.
recommend trying to purchase your own home, or do you think that's also maybe something to rent and just put everything into something like Bitcoin?
Look, first of all, I cannot give financial advice, so I have because but this comes from a place of self-responsibility. If you're looking for somebody to solve your problem, you lost already. You have to understand your problem first, and then you still need to make decisions that come out of your own understanding of something. Of course, you can consult people, that are qualified to do that. But yes, I would rent. And I would invest everything and only in Bitcoin personally. Yes.
That is so interesting. It's also even more interesting because your job is like Forex trading.
But that's like my income. Mm-hmm. So if you have a job or something that generates you income, by all means, keep doing that. Keep having an income. It's important to have an income, because income gives you choices. But everything you have left over after you've satisfied your life quality, again, we'll come back to the point, you want to store it. You want to store that monetary energy. If you store it in real estate, it comes with a whole lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. It could be repairs, it could be political. Like, simple example, my dad worked all his life and bought real estate in his home country in Syria. And then I bombed it all away. It's not even funny, but it's true. So, and You could say like, yeah, but we're like here, we're not in Syria, like you savages down there, like, you know. But it can happen anywhere, you know. And the more people, the more the scissor opens, as we say in Germany, between poor and rich, and it is opening further and further and wider, the more unrests are probable, you know, and actually likely to happen. So either unrest or a regulation of the government that will make it more socialism at the end of the day, which is also not a good idea, because we've seen what socialism has done to countries or to people in society for a big part of the last century, for example, you know. So we know it doesn't work. We know it doesn't make people happy. We know it doesn't create a fulfilled, free life, right? So that's why I think Bitcoin is the simplest solution, because A, you own it. Nobody can take it from you. B, it is not owned by anyone. Nobody can inflate it. Nobody can control it. Nobody can change anything about it. And it's, by now, people think like, oh, it's like 100,000 now. How, like, it's gone. It's over. It's still a tiny fraction of percentage of people in the world that actually understood this and hold Bitcoin. So there will still be more and more distribution of Bitcoin in the population of the world. So that means the price needs to go up, because if you cannot increase the ability of something, then the price will go up, because the people that hold more of it will sell at some price. So everybody has a price for something, and I also think that that it will be like a monetary base layer again, because you cannot inflate it. You cannot. What governments do now is they just borrow from the future, and they borrow to pay their debts. They don't even. And you can see now in the U.S., for example, clearly what the tune is that they want to run the economy hot. They want to keep inflation higher than their 2%, which this 2% is also such a, you know, it's a bit of a clown show. You know, they give you like the CPI, like a basket of goods and services, and they on which they measure the purchasing power, like how much your money can buy. However, they change the content of the basket. So, for example, 2 years ago, the inflation was 2%, and then now, beef got a lot more expensive, but chicken didn't. So we remove beef from the basket, we keep chicken in. You know, so that's the kind of games they play, just to keep it simple, you know, for people to understand what this CPI basket is. Inflation is a vector. It's always based on your own personal basket of goods and services. You know, if you only live in your parents' basement and all you need is pizza and internet, you don't have inflation much.
So actually, Michael Saylor was talking about this. Yeah, exactly. Like, look, the real inflation, if you're looking at like real estate or these types of assets, it's like crazy.
But scarce things going up. Why? Because you don't have more of them. And that's the demand and supply equation that is eternal, is true. And Bitcoin is the purest version of that.
Is there a lot of people in your industry now, like looking at it, or would you look at it as something to use, like with your clients, like bringing Bitcoin into their portfolio or anything like that?
I was actually thinking about that, because what we've seen is, particularly in the last year, gain more and more traction on something called Bitcoin treasury companies. So essentially companies that issue...
This is MicroStrategy.
MicroStrategy is one. By now they're called Strategy, but there's other examples like MetaPlanet in Japan, for example. You know, the whole fixed income market is broken. Fixed income is essentially things that pension funds need, because they get all these contributions from people. Take it from their life force, from their salaries, right? You take a portion of your salary, so you pay into your pension fund, right? Now, this pension fund has this money, and they gotta somehow keep the value of it or make it more. So when you go retire, you essentially have that money, right? And they used to do this with treasury bonds. So treasury bonds are basically government debt. Now, what happened is that not even the US has treasuries that are deemed as long-term stable anymore. So you have like a higher interest rate now on them, 4%, 5%, but the prices of the bonds went massively down. So it means like the value of the actual asset, like interest rate on a bond is not profit. It's basically a compensation for risk that you're taking. So you're saying, okay, I'm giving you that money for 10 years, and you're going to pay me this interest rate over 10 years, so that I could compensate for the risk of you being able to pay it back. Now, what's happening is that as the market perceives higher risk for them to not be able to pay it back, or for their financial stability to be worse after 10 years, these rates go up, but the prices of the bonds go down, because the value of the bonds, because the expectation of that issuer of the bond to be in a better financial shape in 10 years from now is gone. And even the US is in that situation. And now imagine all the other countries in the world. So the US is already the best around. The dollar is the best around. And the dollar has lost massive value because of exactly that. The government just keeps issuing more of its currency, more and more and more. And the dollar is particular, let's just say, in a special role because they were or are the so-called world reserve currency, meaning a lot of other countries in the world also transact in dollars or make money in dollars or store it. But after, the US also weaponized bonds and the dollar against Russia, for example.
Explain that.
So essentially what they said is they said to Russia, you cannot access your treasury bonds anymore. We're just taking them away from you because you're a bad player. So essentially what they did is that there's something that cannot happen to you with Bitcoin, for example. They said, we're the issuers of these bonds. You are not doing what we want you to do, so we will make the bonds that you hold, that you purchased with your money from us, nobody is allowed to transact with them anymore.
Because of the war.
Yeah, or whatever political agenda there is. Today is a war, tomorrow is whatever it is, So because the US did that, there's like more thinking in the world is that like, okay, we cannot stay in dollars. If we do anything the US doesn't like, they just take our money away. So that's why you've seen central banks have pivoted more towards hard assets again, or harder assets. A hard asset is something that is not controlled by any one entity like that, for example, or can be inflated by one. So gold right now at all-time high. Why? Because a lot of central banks have started to buy gold again a lot. Now, Bitcoin is gold. It's digital gold and more. So, but for all of that to trickle through the whole old school system that we're in, it would take time. I think there's also the saying, I don't know the exact saying, but it's like, I think it's called something like discoveries in science or something like that happen one generation at a time. So basically the old guys have to die off first before the new ones can take over. And that's, I think, is the reality of the next few decades. So even now you see already more and more senators, politicians that understand Bitcoin and really think it's a good thing. Imagine in 10 years and 20 and 30 and 40 years. So
a lot of the guys with Trump are kind of...
not necessarily Trump. Trump is, again... It's a special case because, again, they are really taking, they're milking the system because they're like, how can I say, they're businessmen, for lack of a better word. But nonetheless, just because they understand now to launch their World Liberty Finance tokens or stuff like that, but they're also building infrastructure. They're buying a lot of Bitcoin mining, and they're actually through that they can acquire Bitcoin at a much lower price than the market price. But they're holding it. That's the whole thing. But what I was going to say is that there's a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies that have come up, like MicroStrategy, like MetaPlanet in Japan. They provide a solution to these pension funds to have long-term holding assets that appreciate and don't depreciate. Especially Japan, for example. Japan is basically always the front line of the failure of our current monetary system because they introduced the zero interest rates first. They had everything happened in Japan first, and then it spread over to Europe, US, and the rest of the West and stuff like that. So these companies, what they're doing is they're issuing traditional financial instruments like bonds or even selling their own stock, ATMs. But essentially, they're also creating, it's called preferreds. It's like something like a bond, basically, by this company. They take this money and they buy Bitcoin with it, and they hold the Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Now, this Bitcoin, over time, is expected to appreciate, to go higher in value. So that means actually their stock price also goes up. They even trades at a premium because it's why do stocks trade at a higher price than their actual economic annual output? Whether it's Amazon, whether it's Google, it's the expectation of the earnings of the future baked into the price, basically, of today. So that's why we say, like, whatever price you see of any asset now, it's considering everything, every information you have right now, including your expectation for the future. So what these companies are doing is that they're borrowing cheap fiat, they're buying the hardest asset in the world, and they're stacking it on their balance sheet. And because now they have instruments that are accessible to standard financial institutions, like pension funds, like things like that, they can now tap into that. Like, probably, like, a pension fund cannot go and say, I'm going to buy Bitcoin. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to store it, all these things that I, as an individual, can do easily because I can make a choice for myself. They cannot do for themselves because of rules, regulations, lawmakers, committees, whatever, all this stuff. But if within their rules and guidelines, they're allowed to hold a certain stock of a company or buy a preferred share that has a certain credit rating or stuff like that, then they can. And that's what they're doing. And this development is still at the beginning, in my opinion. So because, for example, strategies, preferred shares, they don't even have a credit rating yet. They actually, Michael Saylor, I think, is a pretty genius guy. Like, some people hate him. They think he's reckless and he's overdoing it. I personally disagree. I think he's very strong on conviction. So yes, he's not for everyone.
Maybe the best trade in history.
Yeah, but I even still think the best is yet to come. Just the instruments they issued, like whether it's Stretch or Strike or Strife. I'm not going to go into all these details because they are essentially, he's like a refinery of Bitcoin. You know, like when you, like Standard Oil was, they would pump oil crude oil out of the ground, and then they would refine it into gas, petroleum, this and that, and then sell it to different use cases. And that's what he's doing with Bitcoin. He's basically taking this Bitcoin, and then he's offering different financial instruments that are different in volatility and on the risk curve in terms of for different buyers, for different needs so he's tapping into the bond market. He's tapping into the now the money market. This latest offers, Stretch, is essentially something that pays, I think, 8 or 9% per year. And it holds its value around $100. So it's essentially like a money market fund, like fixed deposit. We do it here. So he created like different types of, he distilled Bitcoin into different other financial instruments that can now be bought by certain market players in their own field, in their own space. And these assets are still a tiny fraction of the total overall market cap that we have in the world. So yes, I think if you want to if you don't just want to buy Bitcoin, but if you're like an investment company and you're interested in a long-term strategy about where to direct capital to take advantage of this development, certainly, yes, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, this is so interesting to talk to you about this because you're so bullish on it, and I was looking into property a lot, so this has definitely changed my perspective because I just have Bitcoin. The last thing we're going to finish with, just because we're unfortunately out of time, I think we could spend another hour talking about the financial stuff, is if there was one piece of maybe financial advice you would give to someone listening, what would it be and why?
Time in the market beats timing the market. Understand that if you are not a professional trader, you will not win in trading. You will treat trading like gambling. You will lose all your money. You want to make money fast. The only thing you will have fast is loss. So what you should do is build some knowledge about long-term, like the viability of long-term assets, whether it's property, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's things of that nature. Like build some knowledge about that. Really, like, it's like going to the gym. So you spend all your life working for money. You can't spend one day a week to learn about money. So do that and then pick the right asset. For me, that's clearly and only Bitcoin. and keep stacking it forever. Hold on to it and give it to your children.
Amazing, man. Alex, thank you so much for sharing your story,
Thank you.
man. Where can people go to learn a bit more about what you do?
So I've just recently started a fresh Instagram because my old one was like just destroyed by bots, I would say. So it's alexdouedari.com on Instagram, or just if you search my name, Alex Douedari, on Google, you'll probably find me on YouTube, or like it's very simple.
Amazing, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Man. Awesome, dude. Great, man.